Picture yourself for a second walking down a street in San Francisco or, maybe just down the peninsula in San Jose.
Right.
It's a crisp, sunny California morning. You're holding your coffee, you glance to your right, and there is this gleaming glass and steel headquarters of a technology company that is worth literally trillions of dollars.
Nice, yeah. They look incredible.
You look almost alien, right? Like a spaceship that just landed from some pristine utopian future.
Mm-hmm.
But then you keep walking.
Yeah.
You look down and you have to physically step around a tent encampment that stretches for entire city blocks.
It's really jarring.
You see people living in dilapidated RVs, sleeping in doorways, literally washing their clothes in public fountains right next to that spaceship.
It is, it is one of the most visceral contradictions you can experience in the modern world right now.
Absolutely.
You have the greatest concentration of private wealth in human history existing literally inches away from conditions that look, frankly, like medieval squalor.
It is completely surreal to witness. And, that contradiction is exactly why we are here today. Welcome to today's Deep Dive.
Glad to be here.
Today, we are looking past the glossy utopian promises of the artificial intelligence revolution. We want to examine its actual physical, economic, and frankly, human footprint.
Right, the reality on the ground.
Exactly. So we're synthesizing a massive stack of sources today for you. We've got investigative reports, deep environmental studies, raw economic data like the Silicon Valley Pain Index, and expert interviews.
Oh, and those interviews include some really incredible, sobering insights from tech journalist Karen Howe.
Yes, her work is phenomenal, and the mission of this deep dive is crucial for anyone trying to understand where we are actually heading.
I completely agree. We have to unpack the true cost of this AI dream.
Right. We are going to explore the massive chasm between the prosperity that Silicon Valley promises the rest of the world and the reality it has actually built right in its own backyard.
Because think about it, you are constantly being sold a narrative. Every single time you open your phone or watch a keynote.
It's relentless.
It really is. The narrative is that AI will magically solve your problems, automate your drudgery, cure diseases, and save the planet.
Right.
But to understand what this technology will actually do to your future, you have to look really closely at what its creators are doing to our present.
I want to start right there with that paradox on the streets of the Bay Area. Because Silicon Valley's central thesis, like the one they repeat in countless TED Talks and congressional hearings.
Oh, the liberation thesis?
Yes, the idea that technology equals liberation. They tell us AI will usher in an era of abundance so complete that work itself might become optional.
Right, the whole post-scarcity thing.
Exactly. Yet, I was looking at the economic data you sent over earlier from the sources, and it paints a profoundly different picture. The researchers call it an hourglass economy.
Yes, the hourglass economy. And the numbers there are so extreme. I had to read them twice when I first saw them.
Me too.
The hourglass analogy is vital here because it describes a very specific kind of societal structure.
How so?
Well, an hourglass economy means you have a massive swelling concentration of wealth at the very, very top. And then you have a growing, precarious, struggling class at the very bottom.
So the top and the bottom are bulging.
Right. And the traditional middle class that anchors a community, like teachers and nurses, is completely hollowed out. It's just squeezed to nothing.
The statistics from the 2025 Silicon Valley Pain Index illustrate that squeeze perfectly. Listen to this.
Go for it.
The top 10% of households in that region hold roughly 75% of the wealth.
Wow.
Right. And the bottom 50%, like half the entire population, they hold just 1%.
It's staggering.
But the gravity at the absolute top is what broke my brain. The data shows that just 9 households, literally 9 families, control 15% of the entire region's wealth.
9 households.
9. That's $683 billion held by a group of people who could comfortably, fit in a minivan.
And the contrast to those 9 households is devastating.
Yeah.
Because while those 9 families saw their wealth increase by over $130 billion in a single year, over 110,000 households in the exact same region reported having almost zero liquid assets.
Meaning they have absolutely no savings.
None. They're one missed paycheck, one flat tire, or one medical emergency away from total ruin. from ending up in those tents.
Okay, let's unpack this, because my first instinct is to look at that and say, well, that's just a wealth gap. We have wealth gaps everywhere.
Sure, that's a common reaction.
But the sources frame this differently. They frame it as a structural displacement. The median home price in parts of Silicon Valley is approaching $2 million.
It's unbelievable for most people.
Right. To just rent an average run-of-the-mill apartment, you need to earn over $136,000 a year. That effectively bars the people who actually keep a physical society functioning from participating in it.
Exactly. The teachers, the firefighters, the janitors, the food service workers, they are entirely priced out of living anywhere near the places they serve.
Which is why we see the unhoused population surging, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
We're looking at over 12,500 unhoused people in the Bay Area alone.
Jeez.
And we have to ask ourselves why this is happening in a place with virtually unlimited capital.
Right. They have all the money in the world.
Exactly. And the underlying mechanism driving this extreme inequality isn't an accident. It's not some temporary glitch in the economic matrix that will just eventually smooth itself out.
What is it then?
It is a fundamental feature of winner-take-all markets and what economists call asset-light business models.
Wait, when I hear the phrase asset light, my brain immediately goes to companies like Uber not actually owning their fleet of cars, or, Airbnb not owning hotels.
Right.
Are you saying these AI monopolies are doing something similar with the actual infrastructure of society?
That is a very good way to think about it. Let's compare this to the industrial giants of the past.
Okay.
Think of a massive car manufacturer in the mid-20th century. To build a billion-dollar company back then, you needed massive physical supply chains.
Like steel mills and factories.
Exactly. You needed steel mills, glass factories, shipping logistics, and most importantly, armies of middle-class workers on assembly lines.
So the wealth had to be shared just mechanically.
By physical necessity, yes. The wealth had to be distributed to some degree to keep the machine running. You built a factory, and a town grew around it. The money circulated locally.
Right. The company needed the workers as much as the workers needed the company.
But a modern AI or software monopoly scales completely differently. The primary asset is intellectual property.
Just code.
Just code. A relatively small team of highly specialized engineers can write a set of algorithms that generates trillions of dollars in market capitalization.
And so the money doesn't go to an assembly line.
No, that staggering value accrues almost entirely to the founders, a handful of executives, and the venture capitalists, usually in the form of stock-based compensation.
Wow.
So when that company goes public or hits a massive valuation, huge amounts of equity turn into liquid cash for a tiny group of people.
And then they buy up the local real estate.
Exactly, driving prices to the moon. The wealth doesn't circulate through a local supply chain. Think of the modern tech economy, less like an engine and more like a massive financial centrifuge.
A centrifuge. I really like that analogy.
It's been so incredibly fast, with almost zero friction, that all the capital gets thrown upward to the top 0.1%.
Well, everyone else gets thrown out.
Right. All the ordinary working class people get pushed outward and downward into total precarity.
It's like they are building this hyper-luxurious penthouse, but they are building it on top of a completely crumbling foundation.
That's exactly what it is.
And this is what really bothers me when I read their manifestos about the future. If this is the actual blueprint, like the physical societal blueprint they want to export to the rest of the world, isn't it just a vision of a hyper-stratified, gated society?
That is a core anxiety raised by these sources.
Because they are constantly promising us the post-scarcity utopia of Star Trek, but looking at San Francisco, it feels like they are actually building the dystopian movie Elysium.
Yes. If the architects of the AI future cannot engineer a livable, functional society in their own municipalities where they have unprecedented historical levels of capital at their disposal,
right,
why should anyone on Earth believe their global vision will be any different? They have mastered the art of capturing all the financial gains while aggressively externalizing all the social costs onto the public.
Which naturally makes me wonder about the pushback. I mean, if the local reality of this tech revolution is so incredibly grim for the average person, how do these companies justify their unchecked high-speed expansion to the public?
They deflect.
Because when a politician or a regulator points at the housing crisis or the wealth gap, how do the tech executives get away with saying, just let us keep going?
Like I said, they deflect. They use a very calculated geopolitical shield.
A shield?
Yes. Specifically, they use the threat of a foreign adversary to completely shut down domestic criticism.
Okay, looking at the sources, They draw a really stark contrast here between the United States and China in terms of technological development.
Me too.
And actually, before we get into this, because our sources bring up politically charged comparisons between the United States and China, we want to be perfectly clear to you listening.
Right.
We are not taking sides or endorsing the political viewpoints of either system. Our goal is simply to impartially report and convey the ideas and data exactly as they are presented in the original source material.
Absolutely. We're just looking at the raw development data these researchers are tracking.
Exactly. And examining how that data is used in the conversation. And what that data shows is a really intense framing by American tech leaders.
Yes. The narrative deployed by U.S. tech leaders, figures like Sam Altman or Eric Schmidt, is essentially a zero-sum game of survival.
Right.
The argument is, we must get to artificial general intelligence first before the other bad actor gets there.
So they frame the race to AGI not as a commercial competition for stock market dominance, but as an existential civilizational struggle.
Precisely.
I see this constantly in congressional testimonies. It's always framed as a moral defense of democratic values.
It is.
The pitch is basically, if we don't build the most powerful AI imaginable, an authoritarian regime will do it first, and they will use it for global surveillance and domination. Therefore, you have to let us build it.
And it is an incredibly potent rhetorical strategy because it acts as the ultimate conversation stopper.
How do you mean?
Well, by elevating AI development to a matter of urgent existential national security, they bypass all the usual friction.
Oh, I see.
They bypass ethical hesitation, they bypass slow environmental reviews, and they completely sidestep regulatory hurdles.
Because if you push back, you're hurting the country.
Exactly. If you, as a citizen or a lawmaker, question the pace of their rollouts or the safety of their models or the environmental impact of their massive data centers, you are no longer just a concerned citizen.
Right.
Under this framing, you are implicitly accused of being on the wrong side of history, or worse, actively aiding a foreign adversary.
It's a brilliant deflection. Don't look at the tent cities outside my window. Look at the threat across the ocean.
Exactly.
But the investigative reports we are reviewing point out a massive glaring blind spot in this race narrative.
And what's that?
The U.S. tech industry operates on the unspoken assumption that its dominance automatically equals a global good, that American corporate hegemony is just inherently benevolent.
Oh, absolutely.
Yet the sources contrast this by looking at the actual development trajectory of the nation they are supposedly racing against China. And the comparison they draw gets really complicated really fast.
It does, because the data complicates the simplistic Silicon Valley narrative.
Right.
Our sources note that since roughly 1980, China has lifted over 800 million people out of extreme poverty.
800 million.
Yes. They have integrated massive populations into their industrial and technological growth. Now, the sources acknowledge that this development comes alongside heavily scrutinized systems of state control and surveillance.
Of course.
But economically, it has resulted in tangible, massive improvements in the physical living conditions for hundreds of millions of ordinary citizens.
Yeah.
Their approach to technology has been deeply intertwined with physical infrastructure.
And this is where the hypocrisy of the U.S. tech narrative really jumps out at me.
Yeah.
If these American companies claim they are building AI for the good of humanity, but they haven't used their immense, unprecedented wealth to fix the massive poverty and structural inequality in San Jose,
Right.
why should a developing nation trust that they will suddenly distribute the benefits equitably once they achieve global AI dominance?
That's a great question.
I mean, why would anyone believe the wealth will trickle down globally when it doesn't even trickle down a single city block?
The Global South is noticing that exact disparity. The researchers track global sentiment, and the data shows that public trust in AI is around 72% in China.
Wow.
Compared to a dismal 32% in Western democracies.
That is a massive gap.
It is, and the reason for that gap is practical. It's not ideological. Developing nations are looking at the Silicon Valley model, which increasingly looks like an engine designed purely to enrich a few software executives while eroding the middle class.
Right.
And they're looking at alternative models that focus heavily on tangible physical infrastructure. Things like nationwide 5G networks, modernized ports, high-speed rail, and applied robotics.
I saw a quote in the material about countries wanting sovereign AI. What exactly does that mean in this context?
Sovereign AI means a nation developing its own localized artificial intelligence capabilities tailored to its specific physical and economic needs.
Instead of just using Silicon Valley's models.
Exactly. rather than relying on a black box model hosted on a server in California. These nations are realizing they don't just want a slightly better chatbot to write marketing copy.
Right, or an algorithm designed to maximize engagement on a social media feed.
They want technology that solves physical, logistical, and agricultural problems. They want AI that optimizes their power grids, manages their crop yields, and actually builds bridges.
They want the technology to serve the physical world, not just generate software as a service subscription revenue for an American monopoly.
Precisely. But here is the ultimate, inescapable irony of the whole geopolitical race narrative.
What that?
U.S. tech leaders insist we have to build this ethereal, digital, superintelligent mind to protect the world. But you cannot build a digital god out of thin air.
No.
You need steel, you need land, and you need water. A staggering amount of water.
I am so glad we're getting to this part of the deep dive, because the branding of the cloud has to be one of the most brilliant and deeply misleading marketing triumphs of the 21st century.
Oh, without a doubt.
When you or I think of the cloud, we think of something weightless. We think of data floating invisibly above us.
It sounds clean.
It sounds green. But the environmental studies make it explicitly, terrifyingly clear. AI is a heavy, extractive, incredibly dirty industrial machine.
It is arguably one of the most resource-intensive industrial build-outs in human history.
Wow.
To understand why, we have to look at the physical architecture of a data center. These aren't just big rooms with some computers in them.
Right, they're massive.
They are massive, sprawling warehouse campuses, sometimes covering millions of square feet, packed floor to ceiling with thousands upon thousands of highly specialized computer chips, mostly GPUs.
And those chips run hot.
Extremely hot. At a microscopic level, you have billions of transistors flipping on and off billions of times a second. Electrical resistance creates heat.
Right.
If you don't aggressively cool those chips, they will literally melt themselves into slag.
Jeez.
So how do you cool a warehouse full of boiling metal?
Yeah.
You use evaporative cooling systems.
Yeah. Explain the mechanics of that, because I don't think most people realize what happens when they hit enter on an AI prompt.
Okay, so in an evaporative cooling system, you pump massive amounts of fresh water through the facility.
Okay.
The heat from the servers is transferred to the water, and then that heated water is exposed to the outside air in cooling towers, where it evaporates, taking the heat with it.
Wait, it just evaporates. It's gone.
Yes, it leaves the local watershed entirely. But here is the critical detail. You can't just use any water. You generally have to use highly purified, potable water.
Meaning drinking water.
Yes, drinking water. If you use gray water or seawater, the minerals will scale up and destroy the delicate plumbing inside the servers.
The numbers attached to this process are just shocking. According to the research we're looking at, a single 20-question conversation with a large language model like ChatGPT consumes about 500 milliliters of water.
Yep.
That is a standard plastic water bottle, completely evaporated, gone from the local watershed, just to generate a few paragraphs of text.
And the sources point out that this is roughly 10 times the water usage of a standard Google search.
10 times.
Now take that one water bottle and scale it up to hundreds of millions of users.
Right, billions of daily queries.
And the continuous massive energy required for training runs on new models. The water consumption becomes planetary in scale. In 2023 alone, U.S. data centers directly consumed roughly 17 billion gallons of water.
17 billion gallons. That is, I can't even picture that much water. And the location of these data centers makes it so much worse.
Oh, the geography is a nightmare.
I was reading through the geographic data, and because of land availability, fiber optic routes, and specific tax incentives, tech companies are frequently building these hyperscale facilities in the American West and Southwest.
Right.
Places like Arizona, Nevada, Utah.
Places that are currently in the middle of a historic, decades-long mega drought.
Exactly. We are literally draining crucial aquifers and pulling millions of gallons from the heavily overstressed Colorado River system.
It's unsustainable.
We are putting the cooling needs of software algorithms in direct, zero-sum competition with the drinking water and agricultural needs of actual human communities. It's madness.
And as disruptive as the water usage is, the energy demand is arguably even more destabilizing to the physical world.
Let's talk about the energy grid.
Global data centers consumed roughly 460 terawatt hours of electricity in 2024.
To put a number that massive into perspective, that is comparable to the total energy consumption of entire industrialized nations like Spain or Japan.
Yes. And because of the push for AI, that demand is projected to double by 2030.
Which brings us to what I consider the most staggering hypocrisy in this entire story. Think back over the last decade. Silicon Valley has aggressively, relentlessly marketed itself as the ultimate champion of the green energy transition.
Oh, absolutely.
Every tech CEO has given a speech about net zero emissions, carbon neutrality, and a clean, solar-powered digital future.
Right. But to feed the insatiable energy appetite of their AI models, they are quietly, rapidly abandoning those climate pledges.
The panic in the global energy sector right now is palpable.
It is. The AI build-out is happening at such a frantic pace that renewable energy sources, solar and wind, simply cannot scale quickly enough to support it.
Because a hyperscale data center requires uninterrupted 24/7 baseload power. You can't have the servers turn off when the wind stops blowing or the sun goes down.
Exactly. So what do these companies do when they hit the limits of the green grid?
What do?
They revert to the dirtiest, heaviest energy of the past.
I was reading about coal plants in states like Utah and Georgia that were scheduled to be decommissioned. They were supposed to be shut down for the sake of the climate.
Right, they were on their way out.
And now they are being given a second life. They're being kept online specifically to power data centers.
It's incredible.
The tech industry is financing the construction of hundreds of new natural gas turbines. And incredibly, they are pushing to reopen shuttered nuclear facilities.
Yeah, Microsoft literally just signed a 20-year deal to help restart a reactor at 3 Mile Island.
3 Mile Island.
It reveals the total emptiness of their environmental posturing.
Seriously.
The very industry that tells the public its technology is required to solve climate change is currently one of the massive drivers of increased fossil fuel emissions.
They have created a perfect system of externalized consequences.
Exactly. They are socializing the environmental costs, depleted local aquifers, increased carbon emissions, dangerously strained power grids, and higher residential electricity bills for normal people.
While entirely privatizing the trillion-dollar profits.
Exactly.
Let me try to summarize this reality. The beautiful, green, weightless digital future we are being sold is actually being powered by the dirtiest, heaviest energy of the past.
Spot on.
It's like a billionaire buying a sleek, futuristic new electric car, bragging to everyone about how they are saving the planet, but secretly powering it with a massive, smoke-belching diesel generator hidden in the trunk.
That is exactly how the architecture works. You don't see the smoke when you type a prompt into your phone in your living room.
Right.
But the smoke is absolutely billowing out of a stack somewhere in the desert to make that prompt happen.
So if I'm listening to this, a massive, glaring question has to be forming in my mind.
Yeah.
If we are draining our precious aquifers, if we are firing up old coal plants and reviving the nuclear age, if we are pushing the global power grid to the brink of collapse, what exactly are we getting in return for this planetary sacrifice?
Right. Are the machines actually getting proportionally smarter?
Right.
This is where we need to dive into the core ideology driving the industry right now, what many researchers call the scaling cult.
The scaling cult.
Yes. And we should lean heavily on the insights from tech journalist Karen Howe here. Now, to be fair, there is no denying that current, smaller-scale, highly curated AI models are incredibly useful.
Right. Nobody in these reports is saying the technology is entirely useless. I mean, in material science, predicting protein folding in healthcare or targeted coding assistance, those tools are doing genuinely amazing, highly efficient things.
Yes, they are. But Silicon Valley is not interested in building highly efficient targeted tools.
What are they interested in?
They are entirely obsessed with a dogma known as scaling laws.
Okay, what is that?
Scaling laws are the foundational belief that if you just keep throwing exponentially more data and exponentially more electrical computing power at a neural network, it will eventually wake up.
Wake up, like become conscious.
Well, cross a magical threshold into artificial general intelligence AGI, a machine that can outsmart a human being at any cognitive task.
But the data Howe presents shows that this theoretical straight line to AGI is actually hitting a brick wall, isn't it?
It is hitting multiple walls simultaneously. The benefits of this massive scaling are leveling off, and in some metrics, they are actually trending downwards.
Downwards, so we're getting worse results for more power.
We're experiencing a brutal lesson in the law of diminishing returns. The industry is burning through planetary resources to achieve tiny, incremental, often unnoticeable improvements in accuracy. And they have hit a very specific, fascinating technical bottleneck regarding data.
The synthetic data problem. I want to spend a minute on this because the mechanics of it are fascinating.
Oh, that's wild. So an AI model learns by predicting the next word or token based on the statistical patterns in its training data.
Right.
To get smarter, under the scaling laws, it needs more data. But the tech companies have already scraped and consumed basically all the high-quality human-generated text on the entire public internet.
They've read all the books, all the articles, all the Reddit threads.
Exactly. They are out of human data. So to keep feeding the machine, they have started training new AI models on data generated by older AI models.
Which is called synthetic data.
Yes, synthetic data.
And what happens when an AI learns from an AI?
The models begin to collapse.
It literally collapse.
Think of it like taking a photocopy of a document. The first copy is pretty clear. But if you make a photocopy of the photocopy, and then a photocopy of that one, the image degrades. The crisp edges blur, artifacts appear, and eventually it just turns into unrecognizable gray noise.
So when an AI trains on synthetic data,
it loses the weird, nuanced, unpredictable edges of genuine human creativity. Its probability distribution narrows. It becomes more prone to hallucinations, more generic, and fundamentally less intelligent.
Wait, so let me get this straight. The science is showing diminishing returns. The data supply is poisoned by model collapse, and the environmental cost is catastrophic.
Yes.
If this pursuit of AGI doesn't make sense scientifically, and it's a disaster physically, why are they doubling down? Why the absolute feverish obsession with scale?
Hayes points out a brilliant, cynical truth here.
What's that?
The push for AGI doesn't make sense scientifically, but it makes perfect, necessary sense financially. The hype is a required feature of the venture capital model.
I'm trying to wrap my head around the economics of that.
Think about the structure of Silicon Valley financing. A venture capital firm isn't looking for a stable company that turns a modest profit.
They're looking for unicorns.
Exactly. To justify a single $40 billion funding round, to justify valuations that reach into the hundreds of billions or trillions of dollars, venture capitalists need a narrative that promises investors a 10x or 100x return on their money.
And you don't get a 100x return by selling a highly efficient, modestly priced medical diagnostic tool to a few hospitals.
No, you don't. You only get that kind of astronomical valuation by convincing the public, the stock market, and institutional investors that you are on the verge of building a digital god.
Wow.
You have to sell the story that your machine will soon replace all human labor, capture the entire global economy, and own the future of intelligence itself.
So the push for AGI isn't about scientific discovery.
It's about power concentration and unprecedented financial windfalls. The scaling cult is an ideological and financial necessity to keep the investment bubble inflated.
So what does this mean for you, the listener, the end user? It means we are essentially burning the planet's resources, hoarding fresh water in the desert, and reviving the nuclear age just to keep a financial bubble inflated.
Basically.
So we can get a chatbot that hallucinates slightly less often when I ask it for a pancake recipe?
That is the grim reality of the scaling cult. We are sacrificing the physical environment for a speculative financial narrative.
It's infuriating.
But the illusion of AGI, the marketing trick that makes you feel like you are interacting with a seamless, autonomous, brilliant entity, isn't just maintained by burning gigawatts of electricity.
What else maintains it?
It is maintained by a hidden, deeply traumatized human workforce.
And this brings us to the digital sweatshops. Honestly, reviewing the sources on this was the darkest part of preparing for this deep dive.
It's heavy stuff.
Because there is an illusion of cleanliness to AI. When you use a major AI platform and it refuses to generate a racist tirade, or it blocks an image of child exploitation, or it filters out extreme graphic violence,
Right.
Your natural instinct is to think, wow, the AI is so smart, it has a moral compass.
But the AI does not have a moral compass. The AI is a cold statistical prediction engine.
Right.
If it were left entirely to its own devices, trained purely on the raw, unfiltered data of the internet, it would cheerfully parrot the absolute worst, most depraved, most violent aspects of humanity.
Because that's what's on the internet.
Exactly. To make the model safe, to make it polite, sterile, and commercially viable for a corporate user in the West, it has to be manually corrected. It has to be taught what is toxic.
And how exactly does it learn what is toxic?
Through human suffering. That correction is done on the backs of impoverished workers in places like Kenya, India, Uganda, and the Philippines.
This is where it gets really interesting and really awful.
The investigative reports detail how massive tech companies outsource this work to third-party firms. For example, a firm called Sama, operating out of Nairobi, Kenya, was contracted to review the internet's most vile, unspeakable content.
We need to slow down here and really process what these workers are doing. We are not talking about filtering spam emails. The sources specify that these human beings were forced to review graphic torture, child sexual abuse material, beheadings, suicides, and extreme hate speech.
Human beings had to sit in cuticles and stare at this material, categorizing it, labeling it for 9 hours a day.
9 hours a day.
Just so the algorithm could learn the mathematical pattern of what to avoid.
Yeah.
And we have to ask, what were these workers paid for this soul-crushing, mind-destroying labor?
The reports show they were paid between $1.32 and $2 an hour.
$1.32 an hour.
For the architects of a trillion-dollar industry, it is beyond horrifying.
And the psychological damage is exactly what you would expect.
I can't even imagine.
Studies of these data annotators show that up to 81% of them suffer from severe PTSD, clinical depression, and deep moral injury.
The interviews and the sources are heartbreaking. These workers describe losing the ability to sleep. They describe losing the ability to be intimate with their families.
They feel like they are living inside a continuous horror movie.
And to ensure that tech companies' PR isn't damaged, these workers are bound by incredibly strict non-disclosure agreements, right?
Yes, NDAs effectively muzzling them from speaking out about their trauma or seeking comprehensive public help.
This is why the phrase ghost workers is so appropriate.
They are the invisible janitors of the digital age. They act as a human shield.
A human shield for our timelines.
Exactly. They absorb the absolute worst of human nature into their own psyches so that a tech CEO in San Francisco or a marketing manager in London experiences a clean, frictionless, magical product.
It is a profoundly colonial dynamic.
It really is.
It's the 1980s Ronald Reagan trickle-down economics promise, just repackaged in Python code.
Oh, that's a perfect way to put it.
We are constantly, endlessly told by Silicon Valley that their immense wealth and their brilliant technology will eventually flow down and lift up the rest of humanity.
But it doesn't flow down.
No. Instead, billions of dollars stay firmly trapped at the top, concentrated in those 9 households in the Bay Area, and only the trauma trickles down to the global south.
Right.
They are literally extracting the mental health and sanity of Kenyan workers to polish the stock prices of American corporations.
That is the stark, unvarnished reality of the AI safety ecosystem. The safety of the model is entirely subsidized by the psychological destruction of a hidden, underpaid underclass.
Taking all of this in, and I know it's a lot, the extreme local inequality and homelessness in their own backyard, the staggering drain on planetary water and energy grids, the hollow financially driven hype of the scaling cult, and the horrific exploitation of these ghost workers.
It's a massive list of externalities.
How on earth are these companies allowed to operate with such total impunity? Where are the lawmakers? Where is the oversight?
Well, they operate this way because they have systematically rewritten the rules of the game.
How?
What the sources reveal is a masterclass in regulatory capture. The leaders of the AI industry haven't just built software. They have formed an unprecedented, deeply entrenched alliance with political power.
The lobbying numbers are wild.
Oh, they are astronomical.
In the 2024 to 2025 election cycle alone, big tech executives and major investors spent over $764 million on political influence.
$764 million. And that kind of money doesn't just buy a meeting. It buys structural integration.
Meaning what, exactly?
They aren't just lobbying from the outside anymore. They are deeply embedded inside the state apparatus. Look at the proposals detailed in the sources, like the Stargate initiative.
Can you explain what Stargate actually is physically? Because it sounds like science fiction.
It does sound like sci-fi. The Stargate initiative is a proposed, massive, physical supercomputer project, estimated to cost up to $500 billion.
$500 billion.
Right. The goal of the tech industry is to fuse this kind of unprecedented tech infrastructure directly with national defense budgets.
Oh, so they want the taxpayer to subsidize the physical build-out of their AGI dreams.
Exactly. At the same time, tech billionaires are securing appointed positions as government AI czars.
Meaning they're advising the government on how to regulate the very industry they profit from.
It's the ultimate conflict of interest.
The reports show them actively lobbying to override state-level safety laws. They are fighting fiercely to bypass local environmental reviews so they can build their massive, water-guzzling data centers faster.
They're acting less like software companies and more like sovereign states dictating terms to a host nation.
Exactly. But the most effective tool they use to maintain this impunity isn't just their lobbying budget, is it?
No, it is their ideology. The narrative surrounding AI has entirely transcended normal corporate marketing. It has become an explicitly secular religion.
The AI religion, you really do hear it in the way these founders speak.
Oh, they use messianic apocalyptic language all the time.
They promise that if we just let them build, if we just give them all the electricity on the grid, all the water in the aquifers, and all the data on the internet, they will literally cure all human diseases.
Right. They will end poverty. They will usher in a post-scarcity utopia where suffering is eliminated.
But history shows us that utopian religions demand absolute faith.
And more importantly, they demand sacrifice.
Yes.
The tech priesthood is demanding that we sacrifice our environmental protections, sacrifice our labor rights, and sacrifice democratic oversight, all in exchange for a promised paradise that is conveniently always just over the horizon.
This is an unfalsifiable faith.
Completely unfalsifiable. If you, as a citizen or a regulator, criticize the massive drain on resources, or point out the traumatized workers in Kenya, or demand independent safety testing, you aren't just viewed as a critic.
You're a heretic.
You are branded a heretic. You are accused of standing in the way of human evolution. You are dismissed as a Luddite who wants to hold back the cure for cancer.
It is the ultimate bulletproof form of regulatory capture. The regulated are the ones writing the regulations, and they are doing it while wearing the robes of a tech priesthood.
It's brilliant and terrifying.
It sounds like they're telling society, pardon our dust while we destroy the physical environment and exploit workers today, because tomorrow, we promise, we will build you a digital paradise.
That's the pitch.
But based on everything we've unpacked in this deep dive, based on the physical reality of what they've actually built in San Francisco and San Jose, why should anyone believe that their planned paradise includes them?
That is the essential, unavoidable question. The historical track record simply does not support the absolute faith they are demanding from the public.
They have had decades.
Decades and trillions of dollars in capital to build a working paradise in Silicon Valley. Instead, they built an hourglass economy that pushes the working class onto the streets.
So let's summarize the incredibly dense journey we've been on today for you listening. We started by looking at the deep, visceral local paradox in Silicon Valley, the creation of unprecedented historic wealth sitting literally side by side with sprawling tent encampments and a completely hollowed-out middle class.
We examined the geopolitical shield, understanding how the fear of a foreign adversary is used as a tool to shut down domestic accountability.
We uncovered the massive, extractive physical footprint of the so-called cloud. We looked at the billions of gallons of water evaporating from drought-stricken deserts, the immense strain on global power grids, and the shocking revival of fossil fuels and nuclear plants just to keep the servers from melting down.
We challenged the illusion of the scaling cult, revealing that the frantic push for AGI is driven far more by venture capital hype and the absolute need for 100x financial returns than by any actual scientific necessity.
We shone a light on the darkest corner of the industry, the digital sweatshops. The ghost workers in the global south who are paid pennies an hour to suffer severe psychological trauma just to keep our AI tools feeling polite and clean.
And finally, we look at how this entire extractive system is protected by unprecedented political capture and a messianic, quasi-religious ideology that demands absolute faith and zero regulation from the public.
It's an immense amount of heavy material to take in.
It is heavy, but understanding these mechanics is essential for navigating the next decade.
Absolutely.
Next time you open an app and use an AI tool to write an email or generate an image or summarize a PDF, I want you to remember the physical chain of events behind the screen.
Right.
Remember the millions of gallons of water evaporating in the desert. Remember the coal plants burning to power that specific query. And remember the underpaid, deeply traumatized human eyes in Kenya that had to look at the absolute worst of humanity so that your prompt could be processed safely.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final thought to chew on. Something we haven't explicitly mentioned, but a question that echoes through every single topic we've discussed today.
What's that?
Let's assume for a moment that the AI leaders are right. Let's say this technology does fulfill its ultimate promise and eventually automates away the vast majority of human jobs, from the truck drivers to the junior coders to the medical diagnosticians.
Okay, assuming they succeed.
Right. If that massive automation happens, and yet the current structural system of massive political capture, total lack of regulation, and extreme hyper-concentrated wealth remains completely intact,
Sure.
who will actually own your time, your data, and your future in a world where your labor is no longer needed by the machine?
That is a chilling thought.
If they are building a luxury penthouse on a crumbling foundation, what happens to the people who aren't holding the key to the elevator? Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.